in the state that's got it.
Yes, yep.
I don't know how many in the United
Testing,
States.
testing.
So I look forward to this, what they've got to say. I've heard Aaron spin on it, but I haven't.
Yeah.
Well, we want to bring it in front of y'all, see what your thoughts and concerns are, and then that's something we can sort of work through.
I see the merit of it, is the funding of
It's
it.
going to be complex.
Rolly, I appreciate that,
My
because as I
dog
was
ears
typing
is
it, I
killing
thought,
me.
I thought I already typed this one time.
That's right.
Everybody doing all right?
Considering I've been in the hayfield since last Thursday, I'm hanging in there.
Like I said, you was some nice looking hay bales.
Well, I'll
just having it there.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And it had some good things in it that I thought, even if we don't go with that contractor, we can make sure.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
in.
well, you, that,
I'd like to call the Tuesday, June 30th, 2020, Harnett County Board of Commissioners special session into meeting this morning, and if you would join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you pray with me? Father, for the day you've provided, Lord, we praise your name. Father, we live in a time that's troubling in our country. The COVID-19 has caused all sorts of challenges and opportunities for not only those in business, but those in government, and for our citizens, Lord. And we just pray for your guidance, Father. We would pray that you would blow the winds of change as far as this virus away from us, dear God, and return our health back to us and our freedom to first of all worship you, and then the exercise of our government and our normal life. Father, we're also troubled by the things that are going on in our country right now with the violence and the things that are going on. We know that we have the right to assemble and we have the right to protest those things that are not pleasing, Father, but the violence and the looting and the destruction of property, Father, our Constitution does not give us the right to do that. So give us wisdom from on high, Father, regardless of who we are. Help us to always remember whose we are. And Father, with that, if we'll keep that in mind, Father, we'll be better citizens, we'll be better friends, we'll be better neighbors. Now, Father, as this county meeting starts today, our commissioner meeting, as we discuss your business, Father, here in Harnett County, give us wisdom from on high to make the decisions that will be pleasing in your sight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Looks like first up is consider approval of corrected 2020-21 budget ordinance and budget.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. This is Brian Haney, Assistant County Manager. What you have before you is a corrected budget ordinance. There were three items that were specifically, did not make it into the spreadsheet related to the expenditures, although they were included in the revenue side, and this error was identified and corrected. Those items are the Harnett Regional Water Debt Service Fund, found on page 1. Next is the Workers' Compensation Internal Service Fund, which is found on page 5. And the other one is the Workforce Development Special Revenue Fund, found on page 7. Those items were included in the budget. They were just not listed in this document. There was some kind of software error that resulted in that. Additionally, when we realized we had to make these changes to the document, there were a number of positions that were in Munis, our payroll software, HR payroll software, that were not included in the grade table, so we took the opportunity to have HR review that and make those corrections as well. So that's what you have, changes in your corrected document.
Any discussion? I'll assume we'll need a motion on that to approve it. Okay.
Commissioner Spring, I'll make a motion that we approve the corrected budget ordinance and budget.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Johnson, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Commissioner McCoy? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Springle?
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes, and for those who are not with us, Commissioner Miller is not here with us today, so there will be 4 people voting in our meeting today. So it's approved. Next on our agenda is administration's request approval for an interlocal agreement for a group self-insurance fund for risk sharing or group purchase of coverage between the County of Harnett and the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Risk Management Agency, along with the resolution to adopt the interlocal agreement and to join the NCACC Risk Management Pool for liability and property insurance.
Yes, this you voted to award the bid to the association at your June 15th meeting, and this allows us to enter into that agreement. Coverages from July 1, 2020 until July 1, 2021 at a cost of $865,100. $157, and this includes public officials prior acts coverage, employment practices prior acts coverage, and excess liability in the amount of $8 million above the $2 million underlying coverage. So that was something that was requested on the 15th that we have received a quote and recommending approval of that.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Johnson, I make a motion we accept the request for administration to approval of the interlocal agreement for group self-insurance fund for risk management, for risk sharing.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Well, I'm assuming that McCoy and Johnson, being y'all made the motion and voted, you vote for it?
Yes.
So Commissioner Sprinkle,
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes, so it's a 4-0 vote, so it's approved. Next on our agenda is Bus Patrol Software Presentation, Bus Patrol CEO Gene Solier.
Yes, and this item, obviously, I think the agenda is a little bit ahead of where it was supposed to be, so I'm not sure if he's on the phone line yet to call in. But basically, we were approached by the Harnett County Schools with Bus Patrol related to an agreement that would the school system would like to enter in a partnership where Bus Patrol would install stop arm cameras on all the county school buses, and then would this would capture photos of violators who pass stopped school buses, and then it would initiate a process for fining those violators and passing any net revenue from the fines and forfeitures on to the county/school system, depending on how the agreement is worded. This agreement, this would be, to my understanding, the first such agreement or partnership Bus Patrol would have in North Carolina. So obviously there are some state-specific issues that we would need to resolve, but we wanted to allow Jean to get on the phone today and to present to you basically what this is. There's nothing to vote on today. It's just really to hear the presentation. Do we have the call-in lineup? 6088 or?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Is anybody on the phone from Bus Patrol? Okay. We may need to come back to that based on the time.
We'll move on to the next item and come back to that. Of course, at the rate we're going to be through a long time. Next on the agenda is update on government complex park name, Carl Davis.
Okay. And he's going to go get it.
Okay.
Go get Carl. So, and Carl will kind of talk through this, but as we look towards opening the first phase of Government Complex Park, located on the Cape Fear River behind the Harnett County Government Complex in Lillington, we have been looking at finding an appropriate name for the park. Obviously, Government Complex Park is something that feels somewhat institutional. So Carl has engaged in a process to solicit public feedback and some options for a park name, and he's run it through his Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and wants to present kind of the recommendation and the thoughts today. So Carl, I'll let you take it away.
So obviously 2 items to kind of discuss today. First, I want to give you the update on the park, what's going on and where we're at there. So the park, it has to be done by this October by our grant that we got with the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. The grader has completed the majority of the work. There's still some small touch-ups that are being done there. But right now we are currently, the trail contractor is on site doing all the asphalt trails, the overlooks, and then the water access. Little issue with the water access right now just because the water levels are high, but we should be able to get to that soon. But all of it's going good. We're still on a good timetable. Once all that stuff's done, the park staff will come in and we'll do all the finishing touches like the grass, seeding, the fencing, the landscaping, the trail work, and signage. And before I can do signage, just want to make sure we got the right park name for it before we start doing all that signage for it. So just wanted to come back to you and discuss the signage again. As you know, we've been calling this the Government Complex Park. And that name was more of a placeholder for when we started doing it for the site plan and doing it for the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. But we never really intended it to be the Government Complex Park name. So I think it's last year I came and talked to you about possibly naming after the former director, which we decided that wasn't the right name for the park. So we started internally brainstorming some other ideas for what we wanted to do, and just internally we never really found a name that stuck and stood out to us that we wanted to use. So I guess it's about a month ago, we decided we were going to solicit names from the public. We wanted to give the public a chance to kind of name the park. So we put that out on our social media page. Ashley Dean sent it out on all the social media. We shared it on our Parks and Recreation page and got over 200 responses, which I thought was great. A lot of good names up there. There's a lot of names we had kind of thought of that we had kind of already knocked out. But so we took those 200 names. We thought we might even put them back out to a poll for everybody to kind of vote on. But after looking at them, there was one that really stood out to us that we wanted to kind of go with. And I took it to my Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee 2 weeks ago, discussed it with them. They all liked what we kind of came up with, so I wanted to share it with you guys today and let y'all make a decision if it's something that you like or not. So just a little bit on it. So what we decided on was the Cape Fear Shiner County Park. The Cape Fear Shiner it's not unique to the Cape Fear River, but it is unique to the Cape Fear River Basin. So that includes the Hall River, the Fork Creek, Falls Creek, Deep River, Bear Creek, and the Rocky River. But it is unique to Harnett County and several of the surrounding counties that Cape Fear runs through. It has a very distinct appearance, and also I believe it is endangered by the federal government. So it's something that is kind of unique to this area. I know it's in the river right by what runs by the park. So one thing that we really wanted to do is really make the park where it's visible to people and people knew what they were looking at, they knew where they were going. And we feel like using that fish, the Cape Fear Shiner, as part of the logo in the park would really stand out to people and people would know where it is. So I just wanted this is obviously not a final logo, but this is just something that we kind of look at, like how the sign would look where we're using the fish as part of the logo. So I just wanted to come to you today and see if you guys are approve of that park name so we can move forward with signage, or if there is any other discussion that we wanted to have on it.
What was the name, Shiner?
Cape Fear Shiner County Park. So the name of the fish is the Cape Fear Shiner.
The Cape Fear Shiner is the only little thing fish I've heard of that stopped construction on a bridge across the Cape Fear River, so it's must be fairly important.
That's a great idea.
We obviously wanted to find something that talks about the heritage of the county and the specific to the location, and certainly as we've developed more parks, you've got the River Park in Irwin, we want to avoid confusion over different park names. So this was what a citizen came up with and submitted, and what I think we like the most out of the options.
I went down there after our last work session. It looks nice. They're doing a lot of good work down there. It looks great.
They are. It's moving. It's looking good. Like I said, we're
You know where it is?
Yeah.
we're relying on
You know where
weather.
it is, Parker? No, you go this way. Go down by where the antique tractor just keep on going straight. Going around. It looks nice. It's gonna be a nice facility.
It will. It'll be very nice. It's right by the San Diego Farm Park, and just to got as clarity for it.
Don't go when it's raining though.
It does get wet. That's right.
That's a great idea. I'm in favor of it.
Do we need to vote on that?
I think consensus is probably fine for that. What?
I do an official vote.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we got the official word. We're gonna take an official vote.
Mr. Springer, I vote just accept the name that been recommended, the Cape Fear Shiner
County Park.
County Park.
Was that a second? Or did you have a comment?
I'll second that.
Okay. We had a second. Now do we have any discussion? So repeat the name exactly again, Paul.
The name is the Cape Fear Shiner County Park. And we threw the county in there just so it was known that it was a county park. Obviously, being in the town of Lillington, it could get some confusion, so we added the county to that. I'm sure that at some point it'll get abbreviated. You know, as parks get well known, people will change the names of it. You know, our Cape Fear River Trail Park in Irwin is called the River Park for the most of the time. So it just kind of depends on, you know, what people will pick up that name. And so, I mean, we don't know what people will eventually go with, but that's kind of the name that we went with on the for some.
Just a possible idea, why wouldn't it be better to call it the Harnett County Cape Fear Shiner Park?
I guess that's just
That's
adding
the
one
same.
more word to it. You know, obviously, Ms. McCoy kind of thinks as long as it is.
As long as it is.
Yes, it's plenty long.
You know, we took that, so the Anderson Creek Park, we made that Anderson Creek County Park, so it's just consistent with the Anderson Creek Park also.
Is the Cape Fear Shiner an endangered species?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the reason they stopped construction on the bridge while they were spawning. We could not continue building the bridge and had to stop for, I don't remember if it was 60, 90 days. It was a period of time until they got through spawning, and then we could go back to constructing the bridge across the Cape Fear River. So
When was that?
When they were building it.
when we built the new bridge, whatever, what, 20 years ago, I guess now. It's
Ain't been that long.
It's been a while, but yeah,
It's been a good while. I don't know.
I found that very interesting. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll poll the board. Commissioner McCoy?
Well, put a lot of work in it, and I vote for it. It's too long.
Well, I assume the two that made the motion and second is going to vote in favor of it, so Commissioner Penny votes yes, so it would be 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've heard somebody trying to come in. Do we have the bus control patrol software person on the phone? Hearing nothing, we will move to the next one. Discuss exemptions, exclusions, late listings, penalties, and tax administrator Bill Tyson.
He is actually on the way, since we're running way ahead of schedule.
Okay. All right, I see Lynn Lambert here, so we can go on to the next one then, which is Harnett County Soil and Water.
That's right. Lynn is here. Why don't you come on up? So basically, this is from the Emergency Watershed Protection Program to restore damage to sustained to multiple sites by Hurricane Florence that we received a grant funding on for the Upper Little River, Lower Little River, and Anderson Creek. So Lynn is going to kind of explain that process from a federal side and a state side and talk about the reimbursements and then answer any questions that you may have as a board. So I'll turn it over to Lynn.
Okay. Thank you all, and I wanted to say from a natural resources perspective, we like the name of the park. We actually do educational sessions for our Envirothon students on the Cape Fear River Shiner, so that'll fit in very well with that part of our office as well. But for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program, our office has had a unique opportunity, unlike any that we have had in the past, to gain some both federal and state assistance in storm recovery. I know everyone remembers very well the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew and then shortly thereafter Hurricane Florence. And as a result of both of those storms, primarily at this point Hurricane Florence, our local waterways have been left with a good amount of storm debris. Large trees and masses within the rivers that impede the flow of water throughout the county. And in turn, when we have future rain events, whether it be a tropical storm or, God forbid, another hurricane and get a large amount of water, these obstructions in our waterways increase the likelihood of flooding in those nearby properties, causing a potential threat to life and also infrastructure. And so when this program was presented through the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, through their Natural Resources Conservation Service Department, who we have a NRCS staff member that works Harnett County. He shares an office space with us and is in our office. The frequency varies, usually at least once a week we have access to him here in Harnett. He covers Harnett and Lee for the NRCS federal cost share programs, as well as he is team leader over about 8 other counties, and so we have to share him with the others. But NRCS had to make the initial request for assessment to see if Harnett County would qualify. The intention of this program is to offer both technical and administrative assistance to help local communities relieve those imminent threats to life and property that are caused, in this case, by flooding. And you all are very aware that here in Harnett County we are very fortunate to have plentiful water throughout the county. Multiple rivers, of course, the Cape Fear River being a primary source of income from water production for the county. And so it's very important, our office thinks as a county as a whole, that we protect these watersheds. And keeping them free of debris so that water can pass freely through is a part of that watershed protection, in addition to the protection of the properties that are adjacent to those rivers and streams.
Lynn, excuse me a second.
Yes.
I would recommend those who are calling in, make sure your phone is on mute, because we hear you talking here in the commissioner room, so please put your phone on mute. Thank you.
Partnering agencies for this program include Natural Resources Conservation Service, the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, and of course Harnett County and our Harnett Soil and Water Conservation District office. The project areas that we have initially looked at for consideration, and Larry and his team with emergency management have also helped us identify these areas based on calls that they have had in areas of localized flooding that they have had to deal with during the storms. But we are looking at the upper Little River, the lower Little River, and Anderson Creek for clean out projects of debris. This is a map of the upper Little River. It's approximately 44 miles that we are looking at having debris removed from. It goes from the Cape Fear River to the Lee County line, and those parcels in green are the parcels adjacent to the upper Little River. So you can see that it really meanders through the county, lots of curves and bends for debris to get caught up in. Then we have the lower Little River. The lower Little River is pretty much the county line between Harnett and Cumberland. And that we're looking at approximately 19 miles from the Cape Fear River to just before Highway 210 for that stretch. And then Anderson Creek, we're looking at approximately 10 miles from the lower Little River to Highway 210 on its south branch. And I don't believe the pointer works on this, but that gray below Anderson Creek there is actually the Cumberland County line. So the top of that gray is the lower Little River. So you can imagine the properties when these large rain events come that are between Anderson Creek and then the lower Little River really do experience a flooding threat. So if we can help to clear debris from in between or from the streams in those areas, we're sure to see a big payback or a big impact in a positive way for those particular landowners. So the way the Emergency Watershed Protection Program works is there is federal funding and both state funding that will contribute to this project. The red line there on our bar graph, the $1,067,057, that is what we have been pre-approved for from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And then the next line down, the blue line, the $3,202,970, is what we have been pre-approved for by NRCS in federal funding. The next line down, the brown line there, the little over $4 million is what we are estimating to be the funds needed for the project as a whole. So that's estimated project costs. And then as you will see, the green line there, that represents our total cost share funding that we have been pre-approved for, which is $4.2 million. And so we have been pre-approved for all of the funding for this project. The county will have to front the funds, and it is on a reimbursement rate. NRCS pays approximately 75%, with the state paying the other 25%. And so with our pre-approvals, if we can stick with the estimated project cost, then we will have the funding that we need for the county to pay for the clean out of these 3 rivers. Now I wanted to show you all sort of a flow of how this project works, because it is very different than grants that I have worked with in the past. It had to be initiated by our federal partner, and so back in August we submitted a letter to NRCS that simply said, yes, we would like to investigate if Harnett County qualifies for the program. And so we did that, and then in January of 2020, our NRCS partner, Daryl Harrington, finished what we call the DSRs, the disaster site reports. And our staff, as well as emergency services staff and Daryl with NRCS, went around to different locations along all 3 of those rivers to evaluate the debris that was present. And so those DSRs were submitted to NRCS, and then in return, in April of this year, we received our decision letter saying that yes, you do qualify, and gave us our approved amount of funding. And then in June, we received our state funding letter for the amount that we have been approved for with the state. And so now we are in the process, or in the step within this process of needing to gain approval to actually accept those funds before we can move on to the next step in the process, which would be for us to send in the paperwork that says, yes, we do accept, and then NRCS and NCDA would then issue the county a contract that we would sign, officially awarding us those funds for this project. And then it would be like most any other project. We go through the bid process, we select a contractor, and then our office staff would work with that contractor to oversee the project. We would do spot checks just like we do on any other of our cost share work through our office. And then once we have a project completion, we can submit a request for payment for the county to receive funding for the project. I have found out that we can have the contractor bill us monthly, so that we can then issue requests for payments at a more frequent basis than at the end. So that way that we can have some flow of funds coming for the project. We don't have to wait for them to complete the whole lower Little River or all 3 at one time. They can actually bill us monthly, so we can go ahead and submit a request for payment to both NRCS and the state to have money flow for the project.
And this project's about a year long?
We do anticipate it to take about a year long. And in speaking with some other soil and water offices in other counties that have handled projects of this nature, a lot of them are further down east. It has taken about a year.
This is actually a great asset for our county. We've never received one of these that I'm aware of.
No, this is the first opportunity that we have ever had to have access to funding of this nature, and it is because it was allocated specifically for Hurricane Florence and the aftermath and removal of the debris.
And through your office and Larry, you feel that Upper Little River, Lower Little River, and Anderson Creek Creek were the most need as far as.
But then that lower Little River, if we could get that one cleaned out, I've worked on that from the storms to searches for bodies and stuff. We get that cleaned out, we can alleviate a lot of our problems along there.
Our goal, I think we would start with the lower Little River and then work our way up, because we want to give this water a way out of Harnett County.
44 miles is a long way.
Yes, it is. It's a long way. And there's not going to be debris along every
Yeah, right,
foot of
right.
that, but within that stretch of river, there are several, clumps of debris that are causing obstructions in water flow.
Commissioner Johnson, I have a question. Where would the debris be hauled to?
In most cases, depending on the size of the debris, NRCS policy wants to leave the natural resource in the most natural state that it can, so they pull it back away from the water and they spread it out and leave it on the property, so there's less of a chance to move disease from trees from one property to the next. They leave it on site. However, if there is a landowner who does not wish to have that debris left on their property, then the debris has been hauled to landfills in certain counties. And so I'm sure that's a discussion that we'll need to have with potentially solid waste.
If you remove the debris from where it is up on the banks,
Yes.
they have a big storm and a flood and it wash back into it.
Well, and we ask that. They pull it far enough back that they don't feel like it's going to wash right back in. They don't put it right on the side. And a lot of this work is done, it's not done with big equipment, because you may think, this is going to cause a lot of erosion and damage to our waters, but a lot of this is actually done by hand and with small equipment. One of the contracting companies that has been involved in some of these projects, they actually have a floating excavator, that if the water body is wide and deep enough, that they have a floating excavator that they can use to access the debris.
And this is Commissioner McCoy. Now, these areas have been labeled as designated flood areas?
Yes, ma'am.
Flood areas?
Yes, ma'am. And with the debris present in the river, during the large rain events, it causes the water to back up even further than it typically does. We'll go back to some of the pictures here. So as you can see, there are multiple piles like this within the river, and with more piling up against that as these storms come along, it actually acts as a barricade, as a dam, and holds that water back, pushing it further out of the banks of the river. And as a result, we have incidences such as this. This is a poultry farm that is on the lower Little River. The top section, there was 5 poultry houses on this property. So we went there right after the storm, and you can see the water level is just a few feet from the peak of those poultry houses. And then just 2 days later, whatever was holding that water in place broke away, and it receded very quickly, and it actually pulled the number 1 house completely down into the edge of the woods, and this was the number 5 house here. So you can see what they were left with. Very luckily, this farm had sold their flock of chickens about a week before the storm came, and so there were no animals on site when this flooding event occurred. This is actually the farm that WRAL showed many times during Hurricane Florence footage, claiming that it was a swine farm with a lagoon. It is not a swine farm. It was a Harnett County poultry farm with no lagoon present. But from the air, they saw livestock barns and feed pens, and so they assumed it was a hog farm. But this was, devastating for this family. These houses cost approximately $500,000 to construct, not to mention the homes that were also flooded. We work primarily with agriculture, so of course we were visiting our farms that had damage and were able to capture some pictures.
I seen where it flooded in the upper Little River.
Yes.
That affected a lot of people's homes.
Yes.
I seen that, that was devastating.
It really is, and we feel that clearing out some of this debris, giving the flood waters an opportunity to flow more quickly on through, we will really help to save, possibly lives and for sure property when our next flooding event comes. This flooding picture was actually from another farm along the upper Little River. This is a young couple in their early 20s who have just bought this farm. They had been married about a year, and they could not get to their barns. It was another poultry farm. They could not get to their barns that did have chickens because of the water that was coming up. It actually washed out their road, and they were not able to get feed into their animals, and so they had to do an emergency road repair to be able to get feed trucks into the animals in the days after the water receded. So we want to work to prevent situations like this by allowing the water to exit the county more quickly.
When you identified the property owners along these rivers and creeks, did you find any problem with people letting you get on their property as far as being able to move?
We have not made the official contacts at this time. We have worked with GIS to create a database, a spreadsheet of these property owners. But our office, in looking at the parcels and the owners, we work with several of these landowners already because there's farmland that borders all three of these, the two rivers and the creek. And so we feel like with the property owners that we already know owning large stretches of the properties, that we already are confident that we will be able to easily gain access. There will be some additional landowners that we have not yet worked with that we will have to contact, but we feel like we have a positive start just with the relationship that we already have with several landowners along each of the project sites.
Anybody's been around here any length of time and saw the water that we had in Matthew and Florence, they would be happy to let that water go somewhere else. Amen. That's right. It was awful.
Well, you've answered most of mine. I had access to the river, which you just talked about, ingress and egress of landowners you just talked about. So the next one comes down to the money. I guess this would be Kimberly, because you talked about we would have to extend the money first and then we would be reimbursed. So we have a mechanism in place now that you've heard 4 million, whatever it was to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We got the money covered and we got ingress, egress. I think we should be good to go. Anybody else got any questions? Do we need to make any type of?
Yes, sir, if you would, please.
Okay, so we will need a motion to proceed with this.
Commissioner McCoy, I make a motion that we proceed.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
Second was by Commissioner Johnson. I'm assuming, Ben, they made the motion in second, they voted in favor, so Commissioner Springle.
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes, so it's 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to back up to our 9:45. Is Gene Solari on the phone?
This is Jean Soulier. Nice to meet you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we will gladly hear what you have to say.
And John, this is Brian Haney. If you can, I briefed them a little bit about what we'd be talking about, but if you can kind of talk through how this kind of got started, what the process would entail, and then what what would be required of the county.
Yes, was that directed at me, the question? Sorry, I had a tough time hearing the beginning of it.
I beg your pardon?
He cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry. You're welcome to just talk through the process and what the how this whole thing got started and what would be required of the county.
Okay, perfect. My pleasure. So, firstly, I'm the CEO and founder of Bus Patrol. Bus Patrol is the most widely deployed stop arm enforcement technology in the world. We have been awarded every stop arm enforcement program competitively bid for almost 2 years. I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Fleming and Brian Haney to make Harnett County schools the first in North Carolina to take advantage of the state law that was passed in order to enable automated stop arm enforcement programs. So as it might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but people pass stop school buses at an alarming rate. About a month and a half ago, the National Transportation Safety Board did a presentation going over the incident where in Indiana, 3 children from one family were killed because of an illegal pass. In fact, in that 1 week, there were 6 children killed and 8 others put in hospital because distracted drivers and careless drivers are speeding past stop school buses. And so Bus Patrol, what we've done is we've created, using artificial intelligence and the latest cloud-connected technology, we found a way to modernize a school bus and hold these drivers accountable. If you walk on a school bus today, it doesn't look much different from the one that I walked on as a kid. And really that's a reflection of a lack of money for the school districts to be able to implement technology. I mean, the trucks that move our things, like the T-shirt I have in my back today, are much more technologically advanced than the buses that move our kids. And Bus Patrol has made it its mission to change that. Basically, what we've done is we've created a program where Bus Patrol equips 100% of our clients' fleet. In Harnett County, that's approximately 260 buses, which would be modernized with cloud-connected AI technology, internal cameras, external cameras, all paid for by Bus Patrol, and the cost burden put directly on the shoulders of those who break the law. There's never any cost risk to Harnett County or Harnett County schools. Bus Patrol operates the program for 5 years. We work with police we build evidence packages and share those evidence packages with police to issue fines to drivers who break the law. And then we provide all the infrastructure to collect those fines and fund the program. All that's needed from Harnett County to proceed is to pass a local ordinance that would allow this program to take shape in your community. And Harnett County would have the most advanced school bus fleet in the entire state of North Carolina. The process that we go through is our buses drive, our equipment goes on buses. Those buses do their regular day-to-day pickups and drop-offs, making sure that they're managing the safety of the kids on their journey to and from school. Our artificial intelligence engine, Ava, she tracks all of the vehicles around it and catches those who pass illegally. All of those incidents are then pumped up to the cloud through Amazon Web Services, where our quality assurance technicians make sure that all of the plate information, owner, registration, all of that is pre-filled, and then that gets sent to police through an encrypted cloud that they access through their web connection. And police officers or law enforcement technicians approve the ticket or disapprove the ticket. Bus Patrol doesn't issue a single ticket. It's always our law enforcement partners who do that. Once that ticket is issued, Bus Patrol prints the ticket, mails it to the offender, and the offender can go online and they can see the evidence being used against them. They see a video of their car passing a stopped school bus. 95% of people who see that video pay immediately online. 3% of those people pay within 90 days of seeing that video, and less than 1% ever contest these tickets. And of those contested, less than 1% succeed. So we've built a pretty robust program that is going to be putting modern technology in the hands of the schools. But it's not just about issuing tickets and enforcing a law. We're going to be giving Dr. Fleming the tools to be able to modernize his res system so that he can plan more efficiently how his organization picks up kids and drops them off, so that we can be proactive in providing safety. We don't need to wait for an accident to happen. We can move a stop if we see it's dangerous. All with telemetry systems that will allow Dr. Fleming to manage driver performance and training, the maintenance, repair of the buses in a proactive way. as well as all the safety cameras that go inside, which would all be cloud connected and accessible over the cloud, so a hard drive would never have to be pulled again in order to deal with a bullying issue or a safety issue that the school board needs to diagnose. That's the overview of the program. I'm happy to answer any specific questions any of you may have.
This is Chris Appel, the Senior Staff Attorney for Harnett County. I want to make a few clarifying points, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jean, regarding the county's role. I just want to make it clear to the board. So as our role, as you mentioned, further clarified, once these citations are, I guess, issued, it takes an individual from the Harnett County Sheriff's Office to review all these. So we'd have to designate a person who's going to have to verify that the ticket and make sure it's sufficient before it's actually issued to the individual. Also, we'll have to appoint an individual or a board to handle appeals. That's on the county. We'll have to do that. Now, I know you say that only 1% contest it. I imagine if we're going to be the first one in the state to do this, I imagine there's going to be a lot more of those at the beginning, at least the very beginning of this. We have to work with municipalities. We'd probably have to get MOU at the very least with each municipality due to jurisdictional issues. I'm still hesitant about whether we can really review for sufficiency any citation that's issued in a municipality. I know the statute that allows us to do this says that we can process citations, but what does process really mean? We don't know yet because it's a new statute. Also per the statute, if an individual gets charged criminally, the civil citation has to be made void, that ticket has to be void, and if the individual paid the fine, it has to be returned to the individual. And so there has to be a system set up to do that, and per a draft contract that I reviewed is that would be on the Sheriff's Office to monitor that. Now, I'm sure the Sheriff's Office can monitor their own citations within the county, however, you're dealing with municipalities. Our Sheriff's Office isn't in the business of keeping track of charges in the criminal system. That's up to the courthouse and the clerks. So there's that additional thing. And then it's all on us. So we have to pass the ordinance. The system has to be run through us, the county. We're the ones who are going to be liable for a challenge to our ordinance. We're going to be the ones liable for a challenge to this process. As you all may be aware of, the red light camera system had a number of challenges throughout the state. Some localities still do it. They were able to be successful, but others completely dismantled it. So this is not much different. And so not saying that this will happen, but I do have a concern legally that we're going to be footing a lot of legal bills. But I just want to make this clarification again. John, if you want to say anything to anything I mentioned, or if I said anything wrong,
Yeah, I would just say that from a resource perspective, the program pays for any and all additional headcount resources that are required to support the program from the county, whether that be law enforcement or the courts. I would also like to say that when we analyze the data of the fleet and the geography of Harnett County, these programs will net to the county net revenue roughly $200,000 a month in additional revenue streams, again, without having to spend any money on either maintaining the program or any of the technology associated with it. Also, when it comes to the issuance of the citations, those citations are issued to the owners of vehicles, not drivers. No points are associated. It is simply a civil fine, as you pointed out, and a monetary penalty. And more importantly, it's actually really efficient and effective at changing behavior. 98% of people who get a ticket from bus patrol don't get a second one. And what we're trying to do essentially is create a program that instills the same reflex we have when we drive by a police cruiser on the road. We pump our brakes before we even look at our speed. I would really like to see drivers pump their brakes when they pass the school bus or they're near one, so that maybe that moment of hesitation could make the kids safer.
And John, another point I want to bring up too, and this is out of bus patrol's control, and so it's not any issue with bus patrol. But under the statute, it's a little bit vague. It says criminal prosecution is encouraged. And so when it says that there's enough evidence to charge an individual criminally, that they should be charged criminally. Now, it doesn't say that they shall, so there's, up for interpretation whether, if we have enough evidence to charge criminally, but we continue to just only issue these civil citations, will we be challenged? I don't know. I mean, I know, I would like to say that since it just says encouraged and not required, that if we never charge them criminally, there won't be an issue. However, I do think whenever you're the first to do anything, they're going to take any part of a statute and try to figure out what was intended by the legislature.
Yeah, I can maybe clarify the difference and also maybe make another clarification that you're not the first in the state to issue a soft arm enforcement ticket using a camera. It's really the automated program in the way that we're deploying it. So these citations have been issued before. The difference in when we're doing when a criminal citation or charge is issued, you have to identify the driver. So the distinction between the two is we're on the civil citation as the law was designed. And by the way, in our lawyer's opinion and Bus Patrol's opinion, the North Carolina law is one of the most well constructed in the country. And we helped pass the law in Pennsylvania. We helped pass the law in New York and Maryland and Virginia. I mean, we're pretty much the leaders, the thought leaders in the space. So the distinction is if a police officer is there present to catch someone who illegally passed a stopped school bus, then the criminal charge would supersede the civil one. And I don't believe that there would be any kind of ground to fight a civil liability that's covered by the law the way it is. So, and I'd be happy to dig in deeper with you folks and validate that with our legal team. But from our perspective, this has been rolled out successfully in multiple states without any challenge. And the other thing too to remember is that when it comes to red light and speed, those infractions, citizens don't accept them as readily as school bus ones because they see that their car is faster than the one from 50 years ago when the speed limits were created, and they anecdotally just don't feel the same about it. They go to work and complain that they got an automated ticket, which is in their view a tax. When you get a ticket for passing a stopped school bus, you hope you show up and pick up that ticket before your spouse does, and you don't go to work to tell people because it's embarrassing. So there are some called moral differences, which show up in the data when we roll out these programs in other states compared to red light and speed. Our payment, the payment rates are much higher and the contestation rates are much lower for those very important social reasons.
John, just one question. I apologize. I want to take more time asking questions, but the cameras, do they capture just the license plate, or do they get a picture of the driver? Are they able to capture that? I'm just curious what the cameras actually capture.
We do not identify the driver in any way, shape, or form. Again, that's an important feature of how the law is designed, is to be able to issue the ticket to the owner of the vehicle. So the video captures the vehicle passing the stopped school bus illegally, and we also have the plate capture itself to identify the vehicle and be able to match, make, model, the year number, and then match that to the DMV records for that individual, and then issue the ticket to them. Now there's a transfer of liability feature, whereas if you lend your car to someone, even though under the law you are liable as the owner of the vehicle, Bus Patrol does have a process by which if the actual driver wants to take on that liability, then we can transfer the liability of that ticket to the actual driver. But in any and all cases, we are only issuing a ticket, civil infraction, to the owner of the vehicle initially.
I have a quick question. How are you going to generate $200,000 a month from this process?
Well, the way it works is, I mean, and again, I'm just using data, so it's an estimate based on all of our implementations. And to give you a scope of our data, we, by the end of this year, we'll be on 40,000 buses across North America. Like I said, we've got a pretty deep data pool on this, and we've been running these programs for years. So the average tickets per bus per day across all of our clients is roughly 0.4 tickets per bus per day. So call it half a ticket per bus per day. And the Harnett County fleet is 260 buses. So you'd be looking at, and I know it's shocking and may come as a surprise, but you'd be looking at somewhere around 130 citations per day. And with 180 school days in a year times the $250 fine, once you pay for all of the equipment and the integrations needed by the school for the program, and then the county shares with bus patrol, that share would equal roughly $200,000 a month in revenue. And again, as time passes, we'll get better at changing behavior, and that revenue stream will shrink, hopefully, right? Hopefully we'll change behavior. But at no time is there any charge to the cost to the city or county or schools. If there are never any tickets, there's never any money spent. Everything you pay for is out of program proceeds.
Any other questions?
I got a question. Have you had a problem across any of the other states where you have a program, of courts using this culpatory evidence of a video only to convict somebody?
No. In fact, video evidence is pretty strong stuff. I mean, but it's all over and above the video evidence. We also capture the when the amber lights are flashing, when the red lights are flashing, when the stop arm is deployed. So we have the context of time to be able to diagnose whether or not a vehicle had enough time to stop. So what we find is that the video evidence in and of itself is all the proof we need. And again, it proves itself out in the data of how efficiently and effectively we enforce these laws. We've never had a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question. There's the old adage, there's nothing in life free, so where's the revenue coming from? If it's not costing us anything, and obviously you've got lots of money invested, where's your revenue stream coming from to pay for this equipment?
Yeah, well, how it works is let's say the program generates, and I'm just going to use fictitious numbers here. Let's say the program generates $100,000. Of that $100,000, there's technology fees that apply first. So that's the amortized cost of all the technology we're deploying on the school buses over the 60 months of the program. So let's call that $20,000. That leaves $80,000 left. Bus Patrol keeps 60% of that net money and gives 40% to the county. So how we get paid is through a share of the revenue that's created from the program.
So is it up to the county, up to the Board of Education, to how do we administer the funds coming off of the fines? I guess is collected through the court system back to you. I'm still trying to figure out how the money gets handled.
In addition
to...
Sure.
I can walk you through that. So essentially, the way it works is we sign a contract with the school board to administer the program, and then there's a memorandum of understanding that's signed between schools, law enforcement, and the county. Bus Patrol manages all of the e-commerce platform through a credit card processing company called Stripe. Stripe processes 90% of all web transactions in the world, so they're the biggest. They store the money in their merchant ID account, which is out of our hands and our control. That money gets automatically deposited as offenders go online and pay their fines. Every month, we produce a reconciliation report with all of the backup bank account data and access all the transaction information to the county. The county then reconciles and approves the invoices associated with the program and flow of funds. And upon approval, all of the monies are moved from the merchant ID's collection account to the appropriate parties based on the agreement that's in place.
And Chairman Payne, just to clarify, so if the civil citation is issued, they never go through the court system. This is just internal with the bus patrol and the law enforcement, which is separate than if they get charged criminally.
Okay.
They goes to that system, and then that's when we have to monitor. If they got charged criminally as well, we'd have to monitor that and make sure that the civil citation is voided out, and also if any money's paid, that has to be returned back to the individual, because it can't fine them civilly and also be charged criminally. So it would be two separate mechanisms.
Okay.
John, I had one other question too, regarding just the process of this. What's the triggering event when of capturing the car? Is it recording as soon as the bus is stopped? Is it start recording when the vehicle is passing? If you just tell me what the triggering mechanism is.
Yeah, sure. So the system is operating constantly, and when the amber lights get triggered, once those amber lights flash, then all of a sudden we start to begin the process of stopping, which creates what we call a stop arm event. That stop arm event itself is run through our artificial intelligence engine, and then that event gets, the determination is made, did a car pass during that moment in time? If the event did capture a stop arm violation, then only that event is sent through the cloud using AT&T's APN. We're not using the public internet. We're using a private network created with AT&T. Then it gets processed in Amazon Web Services, where the evidence package gets built again through our AI engine. Then from there, it gets sent to police, again through an encrypted application, which is accessed from their web connection. And all of the onboard data, so everything that's on the DVR itself, which is encrypted and locked, physically inaccessible, that records over itself every 30 days. So there's, from a privacy and chain of evidence perspective, all of our governance models comply with any requirements that either the school board or the county may have.
Gene, Dwight Snow, County Attorney, quick question. I know this is a new program, and you're saying it doesn't exist in any other jurisdiction in the state of North Carolina, and we're blessed to be considered, obviously, as the guinea pig. Is there anybody else seriously considering your program right now in North Carolina?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're having discussions with multiple counties in the state of North Carolina, and we have, a ton of interest. So I've presented to Guilford County, Wake County. I think we've presented to half a dozen over the last few months. And really what's driving the interest these days is as we deal with what's happened with COVID and some of the regulations that are going to be coming as a result, and also the downward impact this is having on school budgets. There's a ton of interest in both allowing schools to have access to the tools to more efficiently manage transportation, because they're going to need to do more with less, and the best way to do that is with technology. And then secondly, it's the revenue streams that didn't exist before that I think everyone could use these days. That's what's driving the demand. And I could provide you guys with references from a bunch of other states and a bunch of other programs, whether they be law enforcement or county, that could give you some additional comfort in knowing that these programs are very much appreciated and supported politically across the country.
Dwight Snow again, Gene. On your contract, your standard contract, if we entered into it and it didn't work out for us, is there a pull-out clause, or does it have a definitive term, or what?
No, you can cancel your contract with us anytime. You have 30-day notice. That's it. And what happens at that point is we come in and we take our equipment back and bring the buses back to like new. So yeah, there is, from that perspective, there's no long-term commitments. The contracts are 5-year contracts, but your ability to leave them is yours always.
Without penalty?
Pardon?
You said it's a 5-year contract, but we can pull out any time, and if we did that, we can pull out without any penalty.
Correct.
One other question on the enforcement situation from your experience. Let's say you have an infraction and the citation is issued to the owner as you stated, but then the driver is subsequently criminally charged. If the driver is convicted, does the owner get reimbursed?
We would reimburse the driver the same way that any online transaction could be reimbursed. That's something very easy for us to do and automate.
Any other questions or observations? Okay, we thank you for your time and your presentation, and we will carefully consider it.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week, and please be safe. I look forward to working with you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next on our agenda is our tax administrator, Bill Tyson, going to give us some good news.
Well, I hope that you had something that I wrote about on this. I mean, I can give you some good news, but we might not be right on the cutting edge of having everything in that would affect that news. But we have three things here, and I'm hopeful that this may have appeared in your review notes. We have two questions that are associated with the pandemic, and then one that's associated with some auditing that we do. And I just wanted to make sure you were apprised of this, and then if you've got any questions or suggestions for us over the tax department, we'll be glad to take that. First one is in reference to the elderly, disabled, and disabled veterans exclusions. The statutes say that you should apply for those exclusions in the regular listing period, which is January 1 through January 31. And it also says, though, that June 1st, if an application comes to the tax department by June 1st, we are supposed to accept that as well. And in order for us to kind of stick to the schedule of the statute, the June 1st schedule, when you factor in the couple of months we've been closed because of the pandemic, the tax department is asking that we extend that particular deadline over to August 1st. That way we can still make any changes we need to in those particular tax bills, but then we'll have time to get that bill ready because we'll be sending them out and the taxes are due September 1st. So that's the first piece of things there. And so essentially what we're asking is that we extend that date from June the 1st to August the 1st. And so do you have any questions about that piece of it?
This is the exclusion for the senior citizens, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this I'm sorry, Commissioner McCoy. Are you asking for this to be changed for this year or for the year after?
Just strictly for this year because of the pandemic. The longer I've been at the tax office, the more I understand how these connections are made. The reason that there is a June 1st deadline is to make sure that we have enough time to take care of those things, because these days we're getting the bills ready in July. But because of the pandemic, I think that we owe it to, for folks who couldn't get in to see us and whatnot, that for this year we set that deadline at August 1st, and then it'll be a little more work on the tax department at that, as we get to that deadline. But in the future, unless we have something similar, and heaven forbid that we have something like this again, then we should be able to stay with the regular deadline that the statutes say.
Do they have to apply every year? Is it
you don't have to apply every year, but in the case of the elderly exemption, you do have to provide us with some documentation of your of the money that comes into you via, by the year, because there's a cutoff on that amount of money you can earn there.
Is the consensus of the board to allow this to be changed? Do we have to take a formal vote?
I would take a formal vote on that.
You say we do?
I would, yes.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to change the date on the elderly exemption, for lack of a better word, from June the 1st to August the 1st?
That includes the VA also, right?
Yes, sir. Those are exclusions for the elderly, disability, and then disabled veterans.
Okay, thank you.
One more question before we go.
Okay.
Is this, timeframe that you're asking for, is this where you apply for it?
That's right.
Okay.
In other words, in order for, typically, you get tax relief if you file for it in the regular listing period. But because of the nature of these particular groups, then the statute extends it to June the 1st. So, in answer to your question, let me say, I'm trying to figure out exactly the way to say this in the right way. We want everybody to get the exemption they deserve, but we also want it to meet the statutory deadlines and for us to be able to get the bills ready and whatnot. I don't think that answers your question. Ask me again.
No, you answered my question. The reason I'm asking the question is because I've had some senior citizens to call me, and they seem to have problems with getting it through. I was saying, I'll call you about that. So, but yeah, you answered it.
Okay. Well, and if we had any problems, we've been getting our usual kind of our usual number of those as folks turn to the age requirement there that we usually do. But then we know that sometimes folks haven't been able to necessarily get up with us in the way that we were hoping they would be. Now, I don't know what the reason for that is, but if they didn't think they could get in, they probably just said, we'll wait until we think we can. So I think giving us this 2 months will help us out.
Bill, let me ask this question. County Attorney Dwight Snow speaking here. In that you say these are statutory deadlines, is your research or your contacts with the Revenue Department such that a local body such as the County Board of Commissioners here can change that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
With any of these things, I will tell you, I should have told you this up front. We've talked to the Department of Revenue just to make sure, and some folks at the School of Government as well, just to make sure that would be okay. But this is okay.
Commissioner Sprinkle, I make a motion that we give tax relief to taxpayers who qualify as elderly, disabled, and disabled veterans to August the 1st of 2020.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Mark Johnson. Any more discussion? Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes, assuming that Commissioner Springle and Johnson vote yes. So it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The item 2, it's not pandemic related, but it is related to the exclusions that we just talked about. One of the things that came to us in the review of our practices over at the tax department was that we weren't doing a very good job of auditing our exemptions, and that is required by the statutes as well. The statute reads that you should audit at least 1/8 of all your exclusions and exemptions too every year. That's if you do an 8-year reappraisal. We're down to a 4-year reappraisal now, so we've kind of gotten in our minds that we should do, that we should try to audit at least a quarter of these. And to put it in perspective, we have, in terms of elderly, disability and disabled veterans, we have about 4,800 exclusions that are there. So the staff at the tax department has run some things on 1/8 of those, and these are some kinds of things that have turned up in that we have taxpayers who are deceased. And if their spouses were to receive the particular benefit, they're deceased as well. And these properties have never, we've never had anything to come through the register of deeds for the transfer. So we probably, during this first run, we found about 10. Situations which the exemption or the exclusion had expired because of the death of the taxpayer. So these properties are all residential. Somebody's likely living there, likely a family member or something like that. We haven't done any of that follow-up because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it before we did any of that, just so you know. And so we did come up with a group of folks whose exclusions ran out at least 5 years ago. Some others 2, 3 years, that sort of thing. And the statutes tell us, I mean, as soon as we find these things out and corroborate what's there, then we'll go ahead and make that change for the next tax year. That's not a problem, because we'll just go ahead and remove that exemption. But it has to do with those years in the past. The statutes say that we can, as a tax department, that we can look at the current year plus 5 years back. And I think that's what I'm wanting to kind of get some direction on how you feel about this. Because, of course, as soon as we find this out, and we'll go ahead and take care of the exemption at the time that we receive it for that particular tax year. But what I want to know is whether or not you want us to do that in terms, and these are all disabled veterans. I mean, it's either the veteran and or the spouse have passed away, so those exemptions are. So you're looking at about $45,000 per year. The tax revenue is maybe $320, $325, something like that. But it's when you start adding in the years that this exemption was, or exclusion was used, and those revenues did not come into the county as they should. And so I want to kind of look at the fair way of doing this. I want to look at something that we can feel good about what we do, and then also for me to feel that we follow the law in this. So that's generally what this is talking about. And of course, if you start looking at years in the back, then you've got some penalties that need to be assessed there, and the statutes are clear on what those are too. So this small batch that we tested and we audited this time looks at it like it'll either represent about $10,000 to $16,000 worth of tax revenue based upon the penalty piece of it. So that's kind of what I'm at that point right now to kind of get some direction on what we should do. And of course, by statute, I know that we can go ahead and take care of it once of the tax year we're doing. The statute also gives us a way to collect that back, those back taxes, but it's also the commissioners within your purview to relieve any late listing penalties and that sort of thing. And if you say to me that let's take things going forward, that's perfectly legal, and we can certainly do that. If you want me to collect those back taxes, I'll do that. And of course, if you want to collect the penalties, we'll also attempt to do that. Did I explain that well enough?
And that's just for, you said disabled?
Well, in this particular case, we were reviewing exclusions. We also review PUV. We also review any other exemptions that we have with any other kinds of, say, religious exemptions, that sort of thing. We're bound to do that kind of auditing on a regular basis regardless.
So is it our responsibility to review these, or is it the person who's getting the exemption to let us know that they no longer qualify?
Yeah, that should have been the case, but, you know, if you're a taxpayer, say, a grandparent who had this particular exclusion in place passed away, they're not knowing exactly what they're going to do with that piece of property and the improvement on it. And say a grandson, oh, well, let's let him move in and live there for a while. Yeah, they should have told us that. We don't always know what happens, or we can't keep up with everything related to deaths that may occur. And that's really, in these particular cases, the only way this would expire is if we had a death. Yeah, we would like for somebody to let us know, but it's not always the case, as you can see.
Typically, what generates it is when the property is transferred.
Yes, sir. That comes over to us every day. So any of that kind of thing, we have
not
somebody.
Transferred. It's not. You
That's
know.
correct. That's correct. We would not necessarily know that. That's right.
Is that something that the board of ENR also looks at, or something you just do it administratively, and have they already looked at it and made this determination, or it's just, you don't get that far, or kind of?
Well, when we were able to get through this information, the board of ENR had already closed for this year. We had very little business otherwise, so they'd already closed. And this is something surely, because if this is done, you know, there's surely rights to appeal there too. So we'd let them appeal to the board as long as it was in session, Board of ENR. And of course, beyond that, they could appeal to you as well.
Okay, Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
So we're on a 4-year, so you should have done a quarter of the.
Yes, sir. We've got them done, but I told them not to give me that information until we kind of saw what we needed to see, so we can do it all at one time.
My opinion is that since we're doing this process like we're supposed to now, then we should go forward as opposed to going backward. But that's just my feeling. Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? You make that form of a motion?
I do.
Do we have a second? Or do you need to clarify what your motion is?
That we not go back and, if we're following the procedure now, we've got a procedure established, we're following that procedure now, then we not go back and collect the past revenue that we start moving forward. But I would think that in just kind of clarifying what my motion is, that in the future, from this point forward, then we would go back if we find it.
Yeah, this is a part of what people these days call cleaning of the data.
Right.
Okay. So we know what's right.
Right. That would be my motion.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Point of clarification, this is just on the 10 violations that you came
Yes, sir.
up with?
That's all we're dealing with right now, except you know that there'll be, you know, by law of averages, there'll probably be about this same ratio of folks for those that we're in the process of reviewing between now and then. But if you say this way, then yeah, we'll take care of these 10 now, which we already have for 2021, but we want to know about 2020. We can take care of that now, and then from here on out, when it comes in that way, we'll just go ahead and our staff will just go ahead and make that correction on the exemption. Did I answer your question?
I think you did. So if you got, the 10 violators you got now, you're talking about for 2020, but if they owe back taxes also, you're forgiving that also? You're not going after that?
Well,
Right. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you, I think you need to think long and hard before you.
Yeah, and I appreciate your motion, but I don't know that, I know what we're voting on that you're proposing. I think you need to craft the verbiage of what we vote on.
Yeah, and look, when I knew that this was on here, I knew that it's a little more complicated than it looks on the surface. So, you know, I really wanted to get this in your minds. You know, it's not something we have to do right this second.
That would be my recommendation. You put the facts and figures together and bring them
yes, sir.
back to us, because the part I can't quite wrap my mind, I served on the board of E&R for a long period of time. One thing to do now, but we're talking about doing away with penalties and all that and arrears. That's not necessarily an easy process, and that could be a tremendous amount of money. And then,
Yes, sir.
in other words, as the saying goes, everything makes a difference. So I would appreciate you bringing us back facts and figures exactly.
Excellent. I just wanted
If you would
to know
rescind
what
your
you
motion.
needed, and I can certainly provide that.
Okay, so we didn't get a second, so we should be
Cool.
good to go,
That's
all right?
good.
Did you withdraw it or did it
Yeah, I did.
die?
I'll withdraw it.
Okay, all right, number 3 is pandemic related. The listing period for a business personal property is January 1 through January 31st. If during that period you file for an extension, that extends it out as being due April the 15th. Now, when the pandemic hit, the first thing we had accountants calling us from all over. What kind of extension are you going to give us? Well, I had checked with our legal staff and with the Department of Revenue and with other folks too, and that can't be changed unless the General Assembly changes that date, that April 15th date. And that body didn't act on this during this period of time. So we've told everybody that has asked us about it that, you know, we're sticking with our extension deadline. And we still have we had right many in the line of 200 businesses that did not get us in those listings by the deadline. And of course, when we get and open any listings that come to us, then we stamp that, we date stamp that. So we have gotten, everybody's in maybe 50 that are floating out there right now that haven't come in at all. But the rest of those have come in somewhere between 4/16 and yesterday. So it's either we can charge them the late penalty, that's what the statute says, we can do that. And we'll have some appeals related to that. And I think I tried to explain in the paperwork there how this would work, because I think when the IRS extended to July the 15th, when North Carolina Department of Revenue, the individual income taxes to July the 15th, and for some reason, a lot of people started thinking that we were going to extend this deadline. And we don't have to do that, but I just wanted to let you know so that when folks start asking me about it, because their bills are going to reflect that 10% penalty, I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page about it. And, you know, the statutes are clear that if you don't hit that deadline, you're going to get, our software kicks you in the 10% penalty. So do you want, as a body, to extend that, say, that particular deadline till today? And anybody who had it in our office and stamped and whatnot in our office, we had it in our system by the end of day today, that we remove the late listing penalty. That's perfectly within your purview to do that for this year only, pandemically related. So again, this is one of the things I just want to bring to your attention. I just want to make sure that we do what it is that you think is fair. Did I say that? Well,
That one I understand a little better.
yes, sir. Thank you.
We're just extending the date out to, if we say today it close of business or whatever,
That's
as long as
right.
it's postmarked. That would be on the penalties,
Only on the late listing penalty.
late listing penalties. That's obviously is a topic of confusion because of the different deadlines, not the county's perspective, but from the state's perspective. And I've got another question, but I'm not going to cloud the water right now. We'll deal with this one first.
I think because of all the confusion from the virus, I would agree to extend it out without being penalized.
You want to close the business today, midnight tonight?
Close the business today.
Close the
would be
business
great.
today,
5 o'clock.
June the 3rd, 5 o'clock, okay. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner McCoy? She votes yes. Commissioner Penny votes yes also, assuming the two that made the motions and seconded vote. So that is passed to move the late listing penalty to close of business today. But I guess it's sort of a penalty question, unless you guys want to ask, because talk to us a little bit about all the revenues that we're probably not getting because of license plates. Because, you know, that's where our tax monies come in, and people are having a hard time getting license plates, number one, and I think that's actually been slid out to the future also.
Yes, sir, it has. All I can say is what has been sent to us, and it's not been a whole lot of information about how that's going forward. Now, we did get, let's see, we did get on Friday, Thursday or Friday of last week, we did get something come in saying that they would be telling us soon about how things would be getting back to normal pretty soon, but they didn't give us any deadlines, to be quite honest. I wish I could tell you more.
Well, I just assumed it was making an impact on our revenues coming in. That was the point to my,
Yes, sir.
in talking to a person that owns a license plate agency, it's a great frustration to them being able to issue license plates, and then that person brought that to me about the tax part of it that we're not receiving from the county's perspective. So.
Yeah, and we have, there's no telling how many calls we get every day about this. And what we have to do is, you know, we can answer what questions we can answer on what we see in the system, but we mostly have to refer them, most of the time, those kinds of things have to be referred to the DMV. But I'll tell you what I'll do, since I didn't come prepared to say, I'll do some checking and let you know about that. We kind of like to know how things are going on that front too. So probably I have a staff member who I just hadn't asked her.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman, on item number 2, do you want to see that at the next workshop when he brings you back some figures?
Yes,
At the next workshop?
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Moving right along, it says Assistant County Manager's Report, because our County Manager Paula, I didn't mention she is not here today, so I guess we're going to get, it's your pleasure, whichever way you want to bring it up.
I think Brian and I are going to tag team. You want to start with the COVID first?
Yeah, we can start with that. We've asked Emergency Services Director Larry Smith and Health Department Director John Rouse to give you an update on where we are with COVID, and then we can talk about kind of what's happened so far with building reopenings and discuss your pleasure going forward.
And Mr. Rouse is on his way.
Mr. Rouse is sitting right
Hey, believe it or not, you fit behind this pole. I just looked for you.
He's on his way to the microphone.
Let me sit back.
Oh, man.
He said let him know. I didn't know.
I'm going to move my table back.
I looked.
Good morning. What I just want to cover this morning is there's been some questions about the mask or the face covering requirement and getting some of these out to the public. What we've done in emergency services is last week we put together a plan We've requested about 180,000 face coverings from the federal government. They've got a program right now through FEMA and Health and Human Services where they're getting those out. And if we get that amount of masks from them, they can't guarantee it, but if we do get those, what we're looking at doing is 2 points of distribution, probably using one of our, actually both of our sides of the county with a school complex, a Harnett Central or Overhills complex, somewhere bigger where we can get cars flowing, where we would do an initial issue of those to the public. And then what we didn't get issued out on those 2 distributions, we would actually use our community partners after that, get with law enforcement, our food pantries, a lot of our different charities that are out there to ensure that we got those out to the public. But that's what we're working right now, and that will be no cost to those masks are actually no cost to local government, but we're waiting, probably the next couple of days we'll know what we're going to be getting from them. So.
Well, I just want to say, as Commissioner McCoy, that is something I've been thinking about, you know, because other counties are getting masses out to the public.
Yeah.
And we have, Harnett County is a large area. So I'm very pleased to hear you say that, and at some point I want to talk to you about maybe giving me some to distribute this.
Okay. Well, we can do that too. We look at grabbing all of our community partners that we possibly can after we do an initial push to get those out, and that way we'll make sure they get out to the public.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right.
Good morning. Well, I think you've probably seen from our reports, our numbers have really, number of cases really taken off this month. We more than doubled this month what we had in May. We probably tested over, that I know about 4,100 people in the county. And just for this month, we've also doubled our weekly number of cases. The first week in June, we had 45 cases. Then it jumped up to 60. Then the week of the 20th, it was at 98. Last week we had 121. So, and we're seeing a whole lot of, over 80% of our cases are in the population, let's just say 18 to 49. So, you know, society opening back up, people getting back out, getting together, and of course, you know, more testing. That's where we're seeing our cases from. We have not had, we had 1 death the first of the month. We're still at 30, so I've not had another death. The outbreak at Universal, that's been declared recovered, so that's a good thing. I think we did that on Monday for them. So they had 1 that they were waiting to be tested, and that result came back negative. So they've been declared recovered. So have y'all got any questions or?
Hospitalizations, you know, you have a ballpark where that stands, the number?
Our hospitalizations have gone up this month. At the end of May, we were down to 2, and I believe we're back up to 12, 13 that are in the hospital. And you know, we've been having folks in a, let's just say a 50-mile radius. We had one who's actually in another state, was associated with the military, was tested, you know, found positive, but the address was Harnett County, so of course we get credit for that. So.
Commissioner McCoy, John, I think I seen in the paper where you had a 3-month-old baby that ended up with that COVID. Is that true?
We've had a 1-month-old.
1 month old. Oh.
We've had several babies where this just gets in families and runs through the whole families. So we've had, you know, grandparents, mom and daddies, brothers and sisters, and the whole family would come down with it.
Well, let me say this on record. I think you all are doing a great job of keeping the public educated on it. But there's still a myth by most citizens here in Harnett County that it does not exist. Because until it affects you in your family, people tend to think that this virus does not exist. Well, there's no color to it. There's no race to it. There's no ethnicity to it. And there is no, whether it's female or male. It's there and it exists. And it's up to us, as the leaders of this county, to set examples for the citizens. Because there are a lot of citizens walking around here in Harnett County that's not wearing masks. And that's, to me, I think that, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't like wearing one, but I'm wearing one because I like living. So, I'm praying that things will change for us.
It is.
And I'm praying that, this virus will not absorb our citizens. Because it's a horrible death. It is a horrible, I cannot stand to even think about if my husband, my children get this virus and they have to go to the hospital. When I take them to the hospital, that's the last day I see them, if they don't recover from it. So it's just the thought of, and these are facts, these are not just things that people just put out there. I mean, you all are doing a good job of putting facts out there to the public and all, but people are just not listening. That's the way I feel. That's my personal feelings. I'm sorry, but my personal feelings.
John, talk to us about face masks, quality, material, what's best.
Well, anything that covers your mouth and your face that's going to catch the wetness that comes out is good. You hear people talking about can't get masks, and we're getting back into that kind of a situation. I know a lot of places were making masks at the beginning, but I think a lot of those have been given out. A lot of people are wearing those, but the medical type masks are starting to be a little bit harder to find. But anything that will cover your mouth and your nose and catch the wetness coming out will work. I know some of the homemade ones, they are kind of hot and heavy when you got 100% humidity out there. So I do kind of get that. These paper ones are a little bit better, but even when you step out and at 95 degrees and 100% humidity, you got a mask on. So, but any type of that covering that you can put over your face, your mouth and your nose to catch the wetness that comes out, that'll work.
I heard some people talking just a few days ago about these cloth masks, like blue one I have here. You wear it for a few hours. Can you put it in the microwave for a couple of minutes? Will that sterilize it?
No, I wouldn't think that. Now, that mask, you could probably wear that. I mean, unless you're wearing it just constantly, you can get, several days out of that. And these homemade ones, people are washing them, washing them in a dishpan and, hanging them up and doing that, getting a lot of wear out of those. But those type masks like these right here, they're not made to be, reused all the time.
What about contact tracers? How many do we have in Harnett County? Ma'am? Contact tracers.
We're using, I think we're going through community care, and I believe there are 3 or 4 that are working the cases in Harnett County for us.
Well, the dilemma with masks, of course, got one this morning, got this one. I suffer from hay fever, and which means I've got probably a half a dozen different types hung on my steering, on my turn signal. And I understand that the protection out, but if you can't breathe because you can't get air, you'll find out real quick which one you're going to wear.
Yeah.
Because you got to have oxygen coming in.
Yes. Yes.
And there is a big difference in the quality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only frustration with trying to wear. Of course, I'm outside a lot, so I don't worry about it till I come in a place. But if you get in and you can't get enough oxygen, then your brain's not working and whatever. So it's not simple. But I echo what Commissioner McCoy said. But with that said, my phone's been ringing a lot lately about people who tell me they're not going to wear them, but they're young people. When we were young, we were 10 foot tall, bulletproof. Also, we didn't see it, but that's been a concern, and I post every day the numbers that I guess Ashley Dean and put it out to every day. And so, I guess the frustrating part, and I'm going to speak for all 5 of us, we're trying to figure out how to open government, keep our employees safe, serve our citizens, and also how we can open business back up at the same time our numbers are going the wrong direction at an alarming rate. It's not a simple solution, and echo again Commissioner McCoy, to keep us all safe and healthy. That's not a simple, easy thing to do. At least that's my take on it. I think that's the sentiment of your commissioners. It's not that we don't want to do a lot of things, but how are we going to assemble safely? That's a challenge.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, we've seen this month folks getting back out socializing, and you know, it doesn't take but about a week to 10 days, and then we'll start getting those test results coming in. You know, trace them back, and they were at a gathering.
Anything else? Well, that brings us to part, I don't know if we're going to talk about it now, about the reopening, because I mean, that's kind of leading up to what we're talking about. I mean, I guess, is that something the county staff's going, I see a lot of head shaking affirmative, so I guess we'll.
So, to talk real quickly about what we have done at this point, obviously, you know, your health department has been open the whole time serving citizens. A lot of departments, or several departments, I know DSS is one of them, have been admitting people at the door on a meeting-by-meeting basis when they've needed services. To go over some of the departments that have reopened. The Boone Trail Community Center and Library reopened on June 15th, along with their summer camp at obviously you know, less capacity. The Robin Page Boys and Girls Club at the Shawtown Community Development Center also opened on June 15th. On June 18th, the Harnett County Board of Elections reopened their lobby. You've had filing going on for Soil and Water Board, as well as citizens are currently able to request absentee ballots. So they asked to be able to open their lobby to allow the public to enter. The Harnett County Public Library resumed operations on June 22nd, reopening to the public, as did the county's municipal libraries as well. And then yesterday, the Harnett County Sheriff's Office Police Athletic League reopened to hold two summer camp events. We met internally last week with Deputy Mark Hornsby, who runs that program, to discuss precautions, and we discussed requirements for checking temperatures, limiting access, cleaning, and social distancing. They're obviously not currently allowed to operate activities that would be classified as a gym under the governor's order, or that would require contact, like boxing and wrestling. Those are not currently operating. So at this point, we have not required any departments to reopen. Believe most departments have continued to provide a high level of customer service virtually without opening facilities to the public. And the departments that have reopened are ones that have specifically requested to reopen to the public because they believe they can provide better service by doing that. And obviously we still have safeguards and procedures in place to limit access within facilities and to limit the potential for the spread of COVID. So that's kind of where we are at this point. I don't think we have any recommendations to widely reopen county facilities to the public, you know, at this time, unless the board has other guidance. We feel like to date, still, we are not getting complaints that people are not being served. And Coley, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I do. Go ahead. If you got any comments on that before I go. Actually, I've got a scenario I'd like to run by you that we talked about briefly with the planning department. Just kind of want to get your thoughts on this. They are going to go ahead with a virtual planning board that they're going to do. I think it's tonight. So my question is with the Board of Adjustment. Obviously, when you have a Board of Adjustment, it's a quasi-judicial hearing, which is sworn testimony, and that needs to be in person. So I think there's a couple scenarios we can look at here, and it's at the pleasure of the board of how you would like to move forward. One, in talking with Mark and with Chris a little bit, we could have it here in this room and practice social distancing, wearing face masks, things of that nature. Option two would be to have it at the Commons area, which would be a lot bigger. Are we good on the microphones here?
We are moving forward to install, outfit the Commons with a portable audio system that would allow for meetings, basically just like you can do in this room, they would be able to be conducted in the same way. So that is an option of a much larger space that would better allow for that social distancing.
For option 3, we could postpone. They need an answer, I think, July 1st, which is tomorrow, in order to send the agenda out for the Board of Adjustment. So any questions y'all may have on that?
The Board of Adjustments obviously is quasi-judicial, as you just said, and been chairman of it for a lot of years. You're going to have, because you're affecting a person's piece of property, which means you're going to have public for and against there. So if you want to fill up a room, tell somebody what they think they can or can't do with their property. So the point I'm trying to make, you almost have, we need to have them, number one, but I think you're going to have it like at the Commons area. I don't know how, because you've got enough place there you could limit and spread out if there's, and then I guess bring each case in. It would be a little bit harder here.
Yeah.
You could bring a case in, but the public is not going to be able to be in the same room. So I think you would need a bigger venue. The planning board usually doesn't have as many people come to a meeting that
I
they
would
would
agree
have.
with that. I think this room is very narrow, very tight. I mean, it would only allow so much access, and I think we've accommodated over at the Commons from an audio standpoint as far as recording, as well as having the lobby outside, and you can bring the cases in. I think there's 5 cases that they've got.
And then looking on beyond that question, if at a point in time as commissioners start having the public come, if we get set up there for Board of Adjustments, then we could consider doing the same thing there, which is we're confined here with
That's
space.
true, and that would be my next question. If they're going to go ahead and do the virtual planning board tonight, I think they have a couple of public hearings there. Obviously, that would come before you at your night meeting in July. So you have 2 options there. You could possibly have it at the Commons if you wanted to have the hearing and you felt comfortable with that, or by general statute, you could table it to a date and time specific, as you have 2 months to make a decision once it is heard by the recommending board of the planning board. So that's.
And Cola, could they still have the public hearing the way they've been doing the other public hearings here for the planning board? If it's not a
yeah, I can ask Mark when he does this tonight how many's in attendance and how many he has for or against. And I think it would give you a better understanding.
If we had a gauge, because that way if you have almost no opposition, then you can do it here. If you've got heartburn and a lot of people, then you got to have it someplace else, because we want our citizens to be heard.
That's right. That's right. So, are you comfortable with moving forward? Let's talk about the Board of Adjustment first. Their meeting would be next Monday. So are you comfortable with moving forward with letting them have it at the Commons? As long as proper social distancing and masks.
What's your thought? Everybody's been shaking
I'm
their...
comfortable with it as long as they're social distance and the mask, whatever they need to have. But it's got to be enforced.
Okay, all
Because
proper.
if it's not enforced, if something happens, it's on us.
Why do we need to take a formal vote on that?
I think you can do that by consensus.
Consensus, okay. The consensus is that we move forward on your proposal to have it at the Commons area.
Okay. Now, with the planning board, let me see what happens tonight. Let me see how many people are in, opposition or approval for that, and I'll get you an answer on that. And then we've got a little bit of time. We can look at that. Obviously, Gina and Martin needs to do the publications for the public hearings for the rezonings, but we can talk about that at your July 6th meeting.
Okay.
All right. That sounds good.
Okay. Is there anything else you need to share with us? Okay.
I have a question. I understand that we're going to be getting some more funds in the county for COVID.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you give me a little report on that? Because I was asked.
I can, and at this point there's a little bit up in the air. We're still trying to resolve, but I can tell you what we know. When the General Assembly, before they finished up in Raleigh, they, at first we had received, there was a $150 million allocation to counties. We received that amount initially. That was our $2.46 million. There was another $150 million that the General Assembly allocated or held in reserve that would be given to counties in the event that Congress came back and took action to allow that for revenue replacement for counties as well. However, Congress has not done that to this point, so the General Assembly went ahead and decided to release that remaining $150 million to the counties. We do not know exactly what the total of that distribution is yet. We have some estimates provided by the Association of County Commissioners to where it would be a little bit more than double the first amount total between the two amounts. However, there is a provision that would require counties to give 20 or to make available 25% of that total funding to our municipalities. That said, we have some questions about who would be accountable for those funds and how to move forward. So at this point, we've had discussions with the municipalities. They're aware of this. We were aware of their needs to this point. But we've got to understand a little bit more about how this actually needs to be done before we can move forward. But we are still in connection with them. At this point, the total amount of those funds will have to be used for directly to address COVID-19 between March 1st through December 30th of this year. And those are the same guidelines. So we are aware of it. We're still waiting guidance on exactly what we will receive and how that process will work. Initially, we were allowed to distribute a portion to the municipalities within the county, but we were not required to do so. That said, we were planning to do so, and we have been working with the municipalities to understand their needs. So that's where things stand at this moment, but we are continuing to try to get more information to allow us to move forward.
Well, let me say that I appreciate you giving us a report in our last meeting where the last money was distributed. And I certainly would like for you to do that when the other money comes into the county, because I don't like having questions asked of me and I can't give them any answers when it comes to money. And so I'm going to rely on you to do that, give us a report, how you distribute that money, and where that money, or who receives that money.
Yes, ma'am. And under we will continue to do that as we move forward and get more direction. I believe the municipalities are required to develop their own plans for how they will use that money by September 1st, and anything they're unable to use would revert back to the county to be used for COVID. So there is a lot up in the air. Obviously, this just happened last week. So again, I've got a call this afternoon to talk through it with the North Carolina Pandemic Recovery Office, along with the rest of the counties. So we're hopeful that we will get more guidance today and we can share that.
I have confidence in you, Brian. I just want to know.
Well, thank you. Yes, ma'am. We will keep you updated.
Do you have anything else? If you would, at each one of you commissioners, there should be a proclamation at your desk, a face covering emergency proclamation. Let's take a few minutes to, I didn't see it till I got here this morning. Let's take a few minutes and actually go over and read it, and then we'll consider it.
And to give you some clarification on what this is, obviously the governor last week issued the executive order requiring the public to wear face masks when in businesses in public. And we've looked at that as some of our departments have reopened. They are certainly looking for guidance on how that applies to their facilities and what the expectation is. So I've got Chris is here to talk a little bit about what this, the purpose behind this and what it would do.
Okay. Give us just a moment to read it, and then we'll move it back up and discuss it.
Okay.
right, Chris?
Okay. So just a little background, the reason for the proclamation is under Governor Cooper's executive order they issued regarding face masks, local government buildings are exempt under that. So while all private businesses and state buildings will have to require to wear a mask, his executive order doesn't cover local government buildings. So, and then there's a discussion amongst county attorneys and school government whether the county manager could go ahead and mandate that the public wear a mask in local government buildings, or it would take some kind of action by the board, or just as the chairman under a state of emergency. I'll go into exactly my opinion, but I believe this, if the board wishes to require the public to wear a mask in all county buildings and facilities, this is, I guess, the safest bet. It's a belt and suspender approach that under your current state of emergency will allow you to issue this proclamation to extend essentially the executive order to all county buildings and facilities. This is not a county-wide thing. This is, again, just specifically for our buildings, of whether the board would wish the public as they enter to wear face mask coverings. Essentially the same exemptions would apply, such as health, religious issues, if you're eating or drinking something, or if other issues prevent you from wearing a mask. Also, if individual doesn't want to wear a mask or can't wear a mask, we would try to work out a way to serve those individuals the best we could without coming into the building. And I think that this face mask requirement came out because there is some concern amongst some employees of being the ones who are face-to-face with the general public. Our employees are wearing masks. It does help them feel a little bit more comfortable if the public are wearing masks too, if they're interacting with them. So that's why I put this, drafted this proclamation. It'll be up to the board and you, Mr. Chairman, whether you wish to dictate face masks in our buildings.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to get the input of the other commissioners, what your feeling is.
I agree with this, but I just thought about how we're going to enforce it. Who would enforce this?
And so the enforcement mechanism would be essentially, it would be up to staff to ask the individual to put on a mask. If they refuse to do so, we would ask them to go ahead and leave, or if they provide an exemption, we would offer a way to serve them by not having entered their building, but if there's not a way, then we'll still serve the individual. We're not going to just kick them out. But if someone is just being willful and is ignoring the request and doesn't have an exemption, they'd be asked to leave. If they refuse to leave, it's just like anything else. If an individual's asked to leave and they don't, it becomes essentially a trespassing. I don't think our people want to call law enforcement, but if you're dealing with just, I would think in a situation where an individual is very disruptive or something like that, where we would call law enforcement. But I think the whole point is, like Cooper's executive order is education, asking, please wear these masks. It's out of courtesy for everyone else. So that's essentially the enforcement mechanism.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but I see a lot of people just discussing both sides of the issue. Some are strongly against it, some strongly for it. I'm for it.
Right.
I'm just wondering, when you say I have an exemption, where would that exemption come from? Is that something you write up on?
It's something the individual would just say, we can't require them to provide anything. I mean, like if it's a religious or a medical issue, we can't, employees can't require, well, I need to see proof. We have to accept the word. It's an honor system. Not everyone's going to honor that. Some people I think are just going to say, I've got an issue. And we just work with that the best we can. Again, the idea is working with the individual. Is there a way we can serve you without having to come into the building? The curbside service, is there anything that we can to work with them? If not, we'll do our best to practice social distancing.
I think it's a good idea.
I'm certainly for it, because I don't want to see Harnett County become Florida, of California. And whereas we are a small county, it could very well happen. And I think we as leaders need to set examples for our citizens. If they're coming into a government building, I think that if we're going to communicate with these citizens, we can't ask them to wear a mask and we're not wearing a mask. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm certainly for it. And it's for the safety of all the citizens. We are the governing body. we have to try to provide them, provide to our best to preserve and for the safety of our citizens.
I think we're just trying to be consistent. You know, that's what's being required in the businesses. Same should be required in the county buildings. I see no inconsistency about it. I think it does help employees to know that they are being supported by us.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess with that said, I need to read the resolution.
Yes, if you wish to read the proclamation and if you want to adopt it.
Or, I'm sorry, proclamation, not resolution. For those who've been listening in via telephone, what we've been discussing is a face covering emergency proclamation. It goes as such. Whereas on January 31st, 2020, the United States Department of Health and Human Services Secretary declared a public health emergency in the United States for COVID-19 under Section 391 of the Public Health Service Act, and whereas on March the 10th, 2020, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper declared a state of emergency for the state of North Carolina based on the public health emergency posted by COVID-19. And whereas on March the 16th, 2020, I, Chairman Howard Penny of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners, declared a state of emergency for the county of Harnett based on the public health emergency posted by COVID-19. And whereas on June 24th, 2020, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper issued Executive Order number 147, which requires the use of face coverings while in public spaces and in certain business and facilities. Whereas, as Chairman of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners, I desire to extend the certain face covering requirements of Executive Order number 147 to all Harnett County buildings and facilities, and now therefore, pursuant to the authority vested in me as the Chairman of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners, by the March 16th, 2020 state of emergency declaration, I hereby proclaim and declare the following. Section 1. Wearing face coverings. All members of the public who are present in any Harnett County building or facility are required to wear a clean face covering. While wearing the face covering, it is essential to remain social distance insofar as possible. A face covering is a material that covers the nose and mouth. It can be secured in the head with ties or straps or simply wrapped around the lower face. It can be made of a variety of materials such as cotton, silk, or linen. A cloth covering may be factory made or sewn by hand, or can be improvised from household items such as scarves, t-shirts, sweatshirts, or towels. Social distance as referred within the order shall mean the current parameters established by the governor by executive order and by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, including as such parameters may be amended in the future. Section 2, exemptions. Face coverings are not required for people who religious beliefs prevent them from wearing a face covering, for those who cannot wear a face covering due to medical or behavioral condition, for children under 12 years old, while consuming food or beverages, in private individual offices, when complying with direction of law enforcement officers, in settings where it is not practical or feasible to wear a face covering. Anyone who declines to wear a face covering for these reasons shall not be required to produce documentation or any other proof of a condition. Section 3, applicability. The requirements established in this order shall supplement and be in addition to the other requirements associated with the COVID-19 state of emergency within the county, including but not limited to any requirements established by the state of North Carolina. If an individual states that an exemption applies, county staff may choose to offer a reasonable measure to deliver county services to avoid unnecessary exposure. Section 4, implementation. Any individual who willfully disregards or fails to comply with this order shall be asked to exit the building or facility. Refusal to exit said building or facility may result in criminal prosecution. Section 5, effective date and time. This order shall take effect at 5 p.m. June the 30th, 2020, and shall remain in effect until modified or rescinded, declared this 30th day of June 2020. Anything else, Chris?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I got one clarification, I apologize. I misspoke about the planning board and the board of adjustment dates. I want to clarify that. The planning board is Monday, July 6th that evening, and the board of adjustment is July 13th. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, I thought we were a little early
Yeah,
on
this
that.
voting meeting
That's
threw me
next
off.
month.
I thought we were, sorry about that.
So the issue with that would be, when would y'all discuss what happened at the planning board?
What I'll do is after the planning board on July 6th that evening, I will give you an email the following Tuesday.
We'll have a work session.
I'll let you know what happened, how many came into effect, and then we'll talk about that. Will we have time
We
to
can
advertise?
talk
The work
about it.
session would be on the 14th.
But will we have time to advertise?
Yeah,
after that?
for the public hearings on the 20th, we would have time if you all,
We wouldn't hear it till the night meeting on the 20th,
the public hearing.
the public hearing anyhow. Would that be, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just give them the information that Tuesday on July 7th, and we'll talk about how they want to move forward. That's okay.
Yeah, July the 20th, so we would have, I would think we would have time, wouldn't we?
10 days.
Okay. The other thing that, look at your June, for July the 6th meeting, appointments needed. We've got several, District H Tourism Board, Social Services Board, Triangle South Workforce Development Board is highlighted with some people that volunteered, and you see the ones that are not. Please take a look at them and see if we can fill our vacancies. Any other business?
Just the agenda review.
Okay, agenda review?
Yeah, agenda review, yes.
Okay, so, the consent agenda, you see that listed. It's actually fairly light, and Brian and I was gonna give an update on broadband, item number 6. And item number 7, Brian, do you wanna talk briefly about that, the Central Carolina request for the Harnett Promise?
Yes, and that will be discussed at that meeting. However, due to COVID-19 and some of the changes that were made to the school year, especially in the final semester, there were some requirements that are in place for Harnett Promise for some of the students participating that were not able to be effectively met due to the way that things ended. So the discussion and the request from Central Carolina is that those requirements be waived specifically for those students related to COVID-19 that would allow them to be admitted into the program for the upcoming fall school year. And I believe there will be additional conversation with that at this meeting as an action item.
Okay.
Okay, now item 8 is designation of voting delegation to the NCACC 113th Annual Conference.
Delegations should be delegates.
Delegate.
It should be delegate. And assuming they're not going to have a conference, I'm sure it'll be virtual.
They've already announced it will be virtual. I think the first and second week of August.
And the county manager's report.
In terms of your upcoming meetings and dates of interest, everything else, the normal board meetings and work sessions, there is the scheduled groundbreaking ceremony for Irwin Elementary School, July 21st. And then, again, the annual conference will be, for the association, will be in mid-August. And it will be virtual, and there is no cost to attend this year.
Anything else?
Chris, no good? I think that's it, Mr. Chairman.
I'd already asked that hard question, closed session. Our attorney said we didn't need one unless we wanted one, so
He's doing a good job.
he's always still on the roll. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Mr. Brown.
What is this right here?
good for everything else, she got that.